We all have heard the stories in which God takes retribution on men due to his sinful actions. The Bible and the Quran mention cities that are destroyed and erased from the face of the earth by the wrath of God. Perhaps one of the famous stories about destroyed cities is the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. The story says that when Abraham and Lot decided to take different paths, Lot, that have seen the lush plains on the east side of the Jordan River, decides to go there. He settles in the metropolis of Sodom. According to the Bible and the Quran, the people of Sodom were homosexual, and they would have acted so in an aggressive way. One evening, two angels appeared to Lot, telling him that he and his family should leave the city at night, for the Lord will rain destruction on these lands. Lot then asks the angels to spend the night in his house. When people of the city find out that Lot has two beautiful men as guests, all the men of the town surround the house and demand that he surrender the visitors so that they may know them. The angels then come out and strike the men blind. The next morning, because Lot had lingered, the angels take Lot, his wife, and his two daughters by hand and out of the city, and tell him to flee to the hills and not to look back. Then God rains sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. Lot and his two daughters are saved, but his wife disregards the angel's warning, looks back, and is turned into a pillar of salt. The story is mentioned in many religious texts and the view towards it is biased. But what if there's evidence of the ruins of the city? What if scientific investigation can prove that the story is real and a city or cities were wiped out in one night? Throughout history, the location of Sodom and Gomorrah were the subject of debate. The ancient Greek historiographer Strabo states that locals living near Masada say that there were once 13 inhabited cities in that region, of which Sodom was the metropolis. The Jewish historian Josephus identifies the Dead Sea in geographic proximity to the ancient biblical city of Sodom. In 1976, Giovanni Pettinato claimed that a cuneiform tablet had been found in the newly discovered library at Ebla, contained the names of all 5 of the cities of the plain: Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela. A 2021 paper in Scientific Reports proposed that the city of Tal al-Hammam had been destroyed by a meteor airburst, and that this may be the origin of the Genesis account. Though all of the reports and scientific expeditions claim that they have found Sodom and Gomorrah, none of them provide solid proof that the found ruins are exactly the remains of those cities. Could the stories stated in the religious books be fictional? Are there any other reports in history that talk about these cities? The answer to this question is yes. Archibald Henry Sayce was a British Assyriologist and linguist who held the chair as Professor of Assyriology at the University of Oxford from 1891 to 1919. He translated many tablets and cuneiforms of Sumerian and Akkadian languages. One of his translations is an Akkadian poem describing cities that were destroyed in a rain of fire and written from the view of a person who escaped the destruction. Unfortunately, the names of the cities are not given in the work. The text, which perhaps relates to the destruction of the guilty cities, runs as follows. An overthrow came from the midst of the deep. The fated punishment from the midst of heaven descended. A storm like a plummet, the earth overwhelmed. Towards the four winds, the destroying flood like fire burnt. The inhabitants of the city it had caused to be tormented. Their bodies it consumed. In the city and country it spread death, and the flames as they rose overthrew. Free men and slaves were equal, and the high places it filled. In heaven and earth, like a thunderstorm it had rained, a prey it made. To a place of refuge the gods hastened, and in a throng collected. Its mighty onset they fled from, and like a garment it concealed the guilty. They feared, and death overtook them. Their feet and hands it embraced, their bodies it consumed. As for the city, its foundations it defiled. With glory and breath his mouth he filled. This man the voice of the thunder called. The thunderbolt descended. During the day it flashed. Grievously it fell. The common narrative talks about fire raining down from the sky. But what the survivor says in this poem is different. The poem states that after the fires descended from the midst of heaven, then a flood of fire started and burnt down the city and all its inhabitants. It is obviously a volcanic eruption, an eruption and burst of lava so fast that the entire cities were devoured by it. But there is no evidence of volcanic activity near the Dead Sea. Now keep this in mind and follow me. About 130 miles northeast of the Dead Sea, inside the Syrian border, there is a site called Tolul al-Safa, meaning Al-Safa Hills. This site consists of a basaltic lava field of volcanic origin, covering an area of 220 square kilometers and contains at least 38 cinder cones. But what is the relation of this site to the story of Lot? This site is the only volcanic site in the region, covering an area so vast that can cover a metropolis and some other smaller cities around it. But something is off about this area. If you look at the satellite images of the site, you can see clearly that an explosion happened here many years ago in the middle, and the lava made its way out in a radial shape. Now take a look at these images. There are ruins of cities and buildings on the border of the site. These are not some naturally formed places. There are man-made structures scattered around the edge of the Al-Safa Hills. Even the roads are visible that are connecting the cities. Could this place be the site of the lost cities of the plain? Could these images be the ruins of the buildings that were not located inside the city walls? Could this volcanic activity make the water of the Dead Sea die? What do you think? Thank you for watching. Please give us a like and subscribe to our channel.